Hi everyone, welcome to the Metamorphosis event as part of the SFS Spring Gathering. Really happy to have you here, and if you're watching now or in the future after the recording as well. My name is Mary, I'm the Creative Director at Sustainable Fashion Scotland, so I'm mainly here to be the tech person for today, so I won't be talking for too long, but I'm just going to pass you over in a moment to Euan and Lucy from Heriot-Watt University School of Textiles and Design, who are going to share a bit more about the Metamorphosis exhibition and also give you a little virtual tour around it as well. So they're in the space just now. So looking forward to that. I think that's all I had to say. If you have any questions or any comments, it's always nice to get some feedback during the talk. Feel free just to pop that in chat. And I'm sure maybe during or after your talk, if there's any questions and you want to speak, we can also do that. So yeah, I'll pass over to Euan and Lucy just now, but if you do have any questions throughout, just pop in the chat and I'll keep an eye on that as well. So thank you very much for joining, and I'll pass over to you now.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having us. And welcome everybody to the Great Tapestry of Scotland. If you've not been here already, it's a great place to come down. Wonderful building, good coffee, cake, tea, the rest. Anyway, more importantly, myself, I'm Dr. Winton, or Euan Winton, and there's
Lucy Robertson. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. So this year we've been running an exhibition that's probably been one of the most ridiculous ideas we've ever had, and that is an exhibition that has been stimulated by the creativity that we have within the School of Textiles and Design at Heriot-Watt, and the wide network of people that we're collaborating with and aiming to collaborate with in the future. As designers, we have kind of been thinking about our role in the production of waste, the lifespan of products and garments and textiles, and what we can do to be a solution rather than a part of the problem, or how we can work more effectively and more valuably. So we decided that one of the best ways we could start to collaborate together was to have an exhibition where we invited a number of people to get involved with rethinking waste, and rethinking waste as potentially, as one of the speakers from our series said yesterday, as the mines of the future, the places where we can actually get resources, and preferably keep those resources miles away from landfill and involved in the practices we've got going on. I've just noticed there's something popped up in the chat there. Mary, I don't know if you want to address that. We're in a very interesting situation at the moment where we've got a message in the middle of our screen. Is everyone else seeing that currently?
No, they'll be able to say got it. It's because we're being recorded, so we're trying to get rid of the...
We can't get rid of the got it message.
We can't see that, don't worry.
So largely what we've been looking at is how we become part of the solution. The first thing we need to do is better inform our students and better inform the people we work with from the privileged position we have. As designers and researchers, we get to open new approaches and kind of look at things in a bit of a different way. And it's been great to do so, because along with this event, we've had workshops and talks. And it's really allowed us to realize there's already the seeds of new possibilities growing in the work that we're looking at. But ultimately, what we're trying to do is look for better methods, demand changes in what we do, and develop new ways of acting. Hello.
We're physical digital, so if you'd like to come in.
I thought I was really late.
So we've got a few on the screen, but if you'd like to come in, we're going to do a bit of a tour as well.
So
No, just
you're one of us.
the
Things over there. So yeah, so we're kind of trying to look for new ways of acting and largely influencing how design's going to develop, and that's one of the great joys of being involved with School of Textiles. We're placed here in Galashiels, we're part of a rich history. And as part of that history, I think it's also our role to look to the future and how we can be better and act better. So we have started to kind of have new conversations, as we've said, and we're looking at possibilities that have come out of this so far. Ultimately, the research we are doing at Heriot-Watt is embedded in health and well-being and sustainable futures. We're looking at how we act in ways that are going to be beneficial for both society and for the way we kind of act and consume, and how we might work around those things. So again, this has been a great way of pulling together how we do that. And our crazy approach to this was to be very local. So we were thinking globally, acting locally. And to do that, we decided that we were going to have this evolving exhibition that brought research and practice into focus, but also allowed us to kind of rethink what was going on and encourage. We set challenges along the way. So we set student challenges along the way and encouraged people to think and do differently. And as I said, we've had workshops, everything from taking things apart to in order to build a gallery or a museum or collection, library of new materials, and we'll hear more about that later on. So we started off with finished pieces, we got into deconstructing our designs, then we were kind of looking at material waste and as resources for the future, rethinking those waste materials, and now we're into the point of speculations. And those speculations have actually led to us being part of green transition hub applications for trying to be more sustainable within the healthcare system. And we're working with garments and technologies there. Hopefully, if we're successful in getting funding, that'll be a fairly groundbreaking project. We're also looking to the future of fashion and developing stuff from that point. So we're already starting to move forward and try to do things in a positive slant. Ultimately, we got into looking at how do we look at the future of materials and look at the fact that we've extracted so much, or we've grown so much, or we've produced so much that we can now see these things as rich and valuable resources. Lucy will tell you more as we do our virtual tour of the exhibition about her development of the resource that's in this picture here. And that's a library or tool that's been given to students. So these are things that have been stripped out or recollected from waste. And it's not just garments, but it's actual kind of different plastics and materials, and even some of that being sea waste and the likes. So here we are, we're at Metamorphosis. I'm going to stop sharing now. I should say, welcome, thank you for joining us. We've had someone join us in person, and we'll be pulling them along with us, hopefully, as we go through the exhibition. But what we decided to do, because there are some of you online and because some of you haven't been able to make it here, we're going to go round what's on display at the moment. As I said, we've had iterations, we've had 5 iterations. So we've had different displays come and go, but hopefully we'll be able to give you a good overview of what's been done so far. So I'm going to stop sharing, and if I can figure out how to escape. Aha, there we go. And got it. I can press that. And yeah. Are we full screen now? Yes.
Yeah, that's
so
great.
What we'll do is start off with a project that I think Mary knows very well, considering it is her work. So this, now, let me see if I can get this bigger screen. So one of the things we started with was finished pieces, and we'll come across some of those as we go round. But the great opportunity for us came to bring down the COP26 Generation of Waste exhibit, which is displayed in the cages right behind us here. And this is very difficult because I'm about to talk about Sustainable Fashion Scotland's own project to them. So it seems a bit wrong to a degree. But what was great here is what's been produced by Sustainable Fashion Scotland is a bar chart of the production cycle of fashion and textiles, and the generation of materials that go into waste streams or landfill at various stages, and how those relate to the sort of impact that is going on. And very importantly, that this impact isn't just based in Scotland or the UK. This is predominantly, is everything still running okay? Predominantly based in the global south, and it's actually an issue that we are causing for other societies. And this kind of thinking, or this display of understanding, really helps us to start to set the problem and look to how we might actually think in a better way around the massive complex issues that exist. So within the exhibition of the generation of waste, there's a number of iPad video numbers. I'll demonstrate by displaying slightly here, discussing a variety of issues and explaining how each part of the exhibition has been composed. The key thing, as I said, is it starts off with looking at design and where problems in terms of design and early idea development comes from, the production of raw materials through to fabric production, garment production having a huge amount of waste associated with it. It's at 36.4 million tons of waste produced each year. And what's really interesting is it's not just about the tonnage that they've kind of communicated this, but also in the terms of scale of buildings. So when you start to see some of this detail, it's really quite interesting. All the way to the far end, where we get to end of life of garments and materials, and what those materials can do. And that has been a significant part in what we've started to unpick in our exhibition. So I'm going to pick you up and hopefully move you around and encourage people to flow with us. Just giving you a bit of a kind of display of what is here. I think what's hugely interesting, so the equivalent volume of 38 of the Boeing Everett factories, or 67.76 million tons of materials going to landfill or waste, and not being worked with properly. So within the exhibition, we've been able to bring in such how would we best describe such wonderful external relationships or people to kind of come in, do talks, display work that's been ongoing. And Cassandra Belanger from Zero Waste Design, who produced these wonderful garments, came in to tell us about their methods in maximizing the use of textiles and maximizing through the way the pattern cutting happens, but also bringing remnants together to create new textiles along the way. And I think it was fascinating to actually let our students see this kind of work and to understand just what a difference it makes and how creative that can be by setting structure and limitations on what is being asked. We can start to then open up opportunities around new design styles and techniques and approaches. Excuse me. What we were doing all the way through was looking at the materials that we could gather along the way. And we had wonderful student explorations in the use of sea waste and found materials. So we've had everything from rethinking textiles and rethinking garments and construction of garments into textiles and found materials and new ways of expressing ideas, pulling together what might be if we start to mine the oceans, I guess. And these things are speculations, they're the kind of early stage designs, but they're great ways of actually seeing that we don't need to be limited by current practices or current thinking. As I said, we're giving you a bit of a whirlwind tour of the exhibition. We'll come towards some of the heritage, local heritage. So the work in front of us here is by one of our colleagues, Emily Quinn, who has, she's got a mill somewhere near here, hasn't she?
Yeah, she's got a kind of workshop in Hoyk, and then she's got a shop in Lauder.
And Emily's been very interested in archive materials and working with the textile heritage of the local environment. And what she does is she generates all sorts of wonderful collages and reimagines those, opening up the archive and the heritage, but also making use of redundant pieces. So a lot of what's displayed here has actually been a combination of working with artists and designers to create new artifacts, but also, and we've got a chair, I'll tip the chair rather than tip the computer. But these were all about kind of unpicking what's been left lying and trying to think differently about the resources at hand, but also how we can tell stories of the heritage of the locale and what's going on. Behind us, so as I said, we're now moving into, or we're almost complete. But what has been great is we've been able to invite students to reconsider the materials they use. So the project here, Discarded Denim, the students collected all sorts of denims that were seen as waste, as no longer required, they were unloved, and they were reimagined into bags. And the whole idea was to produce bags, but these bags often became quite hybrid. So the example being shown at the moment is, I suppose, a kind of gilet slash bag slash over the arm piece, but a lot of the detailing that was found on the denim led the students to think quite creatively, which was a great opportunity. And those kind of restrictions have allowed us to see really fantastic creative endeavours. Do you want to discuss rejuvenation of waste? Lucy, if I bring us round a bit more.
Yep, so this next project is from our third year textile design course from the knit and print disciplines. So again, actually led by Emily, who you just seen the work over there, and another of our lecturers, Angela. And they looked at reclaiming garments and reconstructing them into either knit or printed pieces. So I don't know if you can see, yeah, you can kind of see the screen moving as well. Some of the screen shows the garments in their kind of original state and then how they've developed them on. So for example, got a leather jacket that was then printed on. Don't know if you can see the print there. So this feels like very kind of back to COVID teaching. So yeah, collection of kind of leathers. We've got different yarns used within kind of knit pieces. Maybe take you closer to the wall if that's all right. I'm sorry, this is going to feel a bit seasick. But yeah, so looking at different yarn combinations, deconstructing them initially from different garments and then reconstructing them in their own processes. Anything to add about that one?
No, again, it was just great to see how those restrictions for those uses of existing materials really opened up new opportunities. And I think one of the standout pieces that we're about to show from that position is Kinray's work, which is very theatrical in form. It's a fantastic pairing. So I do apologise to Chinray if I'm pronouncing her name wrong, but she's one of our Chinese students, and what she did was worked with reclaimed materials. She actually scoured the halls of residence and came back to with a gathering of all sorts of materials and fabrics and structures, and these are actually her toiles for our future projects. So the detailing in these is just absolutely incredible. But they tell a story of being a twin, which is a really interesting starting point for the exhibit. It's she's produced, I think, about half a dozen pieces so far in this way, and they are something well beyond my usual experience of fashion and textiles design, and yet they're wonderful. I kind of see them much more as an art piece in what they do, but again, it shows just how well the students have adapted to that change. Coming round, we're going to get onto Flora Collingwood-Norris's work here, and hopefully I'll do the seasick thing again slightly. So hopefully you'll see these wonderfully repaired socks. Absolutely beautiful work. So Flora was a former student of ours, and she's become, I think her book is up there in the poster, has become a leading light in visible creative mending, or making things that are beautiful last longer, merely by having beautiful repair, which I think is a wonderful approach to the challenges that we face of not disregarding something we love merely because some sort of blemishment has happened. So it's been great to be able to showcase student work. It's been great to showcase work from the likes of COP26, but also new businesses that are developing and new approaches to kind of thinking about the longevity of items. It's really kind of a lot of fun for us as well, because it triggers us to think a bit differently. So I go from that to something quite experimental and somewhat childlike, and I'm happy enough to say it's mine. We're coming into the salvage chair, which was actually a chair rescued from landfill and salvaged from Schofields, developed into a child's chair, and it was really more of an experiment in saying, well, people will do stuff with some of these materials, but there are huge quantities of it produced. We're looking at how we might develop new ventures out of School of Textiles and Design, and how we might actually deliver new courses. So we might be looking at products and services and approaches in the future. And if we get a little bit experimental, can we get a bit playful with things? And my daughter has now given me a request for a rocking chair in this. I've got a demanding 4-year-old that does such things, but it was a great way to kind of feel connected to the materials, and I think that's important. Again, we've been building new relationships as we go along, and I'll just pull out a little bit here. So Use Less is now a collaboration that Lucy is developing to quite an extent, so I will allow you to take over.
Yes, so this is one of our collaborators. They are based in Hanover in Germany, and they've built basically a research group around this concept of using less. So we've got a couple of pieces of their original exhibition, which highlighted very similar themes to ours. We met them last September, and we're kind of gaining a bit of traction on our collaboration there, and working with not only their research group, but also their students, and our students kind of collaborating currently digitally, but hopefully physically soon. And these two pieces, so we've got a jumper, which is the kind of is a pattern which was developed as part of from the what's it called, UN sustainability goals. So a pattern that they've created and they've knitted based on the sustainability goals. And then alongside that is some of their fabrics that they've kind of reclaimed and reused. What else to say about them?
I can't remember who. There was one of Use Less. I've forgotten her name, and it's terrible to
Maria,
admit that.
who's an alumni. Or Martina.
Martina used to be at
Oh, yeah.
Westwood.
Yeah, Martina
For-
used to
for-
work for Vivian Westwood, so she has a huge kind of background in the industry, in an amazing industry. And Maria, so the two people that were working with them Use Less, Maria was an alumni here at Galashiels, so there's lots of connections throughout the exhibition, but also with this particular group. I was going to say something else around them and I've totally forgotten. Oh yeah, so we are looking specifically with them at local resource. So in Lower Saxony, there's quite a lot of local resources, and they're looking to gain kind of information and knowledge from our local resources, our local processing. So for example, the chair links in nicely because that's from Schofields, who are a local finishing, dyeing and finishing factory here in Galashiels. So when they visit us again, which they will in September, we do tours of the local resources with the students to kind of highlight that you can get a lot locally. Move round to the next bit.
Yeah, so we've to a degree we've already covered the textile and heritage stuff that Emily Quinn has been looking at, and hopefully you're seeing in front of you just now some of the stockings and printings that she's done from the resources at her disposal, but also about telling that heritage and narrative that is sometimes lost. So what's been great about this exhibition is it's allowed us to do new things. It's allowed us to bring heritage back into focus. It's also allowed us to make a reconnection with the local environment at Galashiels. I think to some degree it's nice to believe that it's possibly ASDA and Tesco's fault that Galashiels and the School of Textiles and Design feel slightly removed and have maybe lost the connection that once was, and that's why we're trying to regenerate this localized supportive idea, and that's because there are two big buildings that block the way. So hopefully we're knocking those virtually out the way and starting to create new relationships. And that can connect between the Use Less all the way through to the textile heritage retold. But what's also been great about this event is it's allowed us, we think we've not counted the buttons, which have been our tokens of coming into the space, but we think we've had over 1,000 visitors come in and actually see what's happening and to see different iterations as we go through. Some of the other things we've had on show so far have included work that have been done with people who are living with dementia, and I think Lucy might tell you a little bit about her project there. We've actually, both Lucy and I have done work historically around design with dementia and kind of working with people to make sure they stay part of community for as long as possible and to feel reinforced about what they're capable of, rather than seen as incapable of doing. And that's been done through a number of textiles and creative approaches. And that's one of the things we want to make sure we do, is we continue to work in projects that bring people into doing things and being creative. this leads us on to Angela Cassidy's work, who actually set herself up during the exhibition in the space. And she was knitting with leftover kind of stock. It was basically the remnants of what was left on these has gone into creating this wonderful new scarf. So actually, it's lovely to know we've had something created live during the event that's become part of the show, and hopefully part of my wardrobe one day. I don't know if I'll get away with that colour combination, but you never know. As I've said throughout, we've had these wonderful kind of explorations of waste materials, and in the corner here we have a number of outcomes that kind of do things in different ways. We now have communication design at Textile School of Design, yeah, at Heriot-Watt, and this kind of physical lit object is actually a bit of a graphic commentary on the extinction of species that we are proliferating because of our unkind and unthinking ways. And what we're trying to do is kind of take stuff that might have been seen as expended, you know, and kind of keep them in the mix as something with potential alternative uses. And a lot of that's happening in this corner. We've got everything from the cloud jacket, which is in the top corner there. That was textiles originally in Harvey Nichols' window displays, and it's been brought into the students' exploration of self. But this is a project that kind of looks at, now I can't remember is it consysmorphia, which I'm trying to remember what the ins and outs of that were. We might be able to pick it up quickly, but basically looking at the idea that almost every one of us has things that we might see as very self-identifying and challenging, but through kind of new ways of looking and thinking and sharing, we can break down barriers and kind of open up understanding. Because we are currently doing work in the NHS, I find this project incredibly interesting as well. It's another fashion student piece, but what they've done is use showing the fact it is the leg of something. It's a proposal for something, but they've actually used what was NHS curtains. So those little spaces of kind of looking after, very self-conscious now, I'm seeing myself on that screen, looking after your own sensitivities and not being kind of open to the world. And these are things that were, again, what do you do with them after? So at least bringing them in and giving them something else, another value, has been a great consideration. Just before we get on to Sonic Flock, yesterday we had, and this is where some of the diversity in products and materials and futures comes in. We had Sam Chapman from Kinotech, or Kinotech, Kent. He said he'd heard it every week. Coming in to talk about this, which is the DZine Sustainable Design of the Year Award product. And this is actually 95% recycled materials. They're working on the final 5%. It is a hugely carbon efficient brick for building. It comes in an array of colours, and those colours can be mixed further. At the moment, they're in CMYK, and the reason they're in CMYK is that the colour comes from residual toner cartridge inks. So what you have is a thermally superior product that reduces the carbon consumption in the production. So there's no heat used to generate and make these products. It has become a spin-out company from Heriot-Watt, and it has now got its own factory in East Lothian. And the key thing is they've just secured patent for Europe, and I think they've got patents in other areas, which means they're now in a position to scale up and make sure that the product becomes a massively viable, sustainable solution. And as I say, this is made from 95% of reclaimed materials, largely from the built environment already. So it's seeing that the resources that were below ground and that have been above ground and are now seen as defunct can be mashed up and reassembled to produce the bricks of the future. So no longer are we having to take stuff out of the ground and kind of mine in ways that are absolutely detrimental to the environment. Now, I'm going to point you to the ceiling, I think, almost. Lucy, you'd be better placed to discuss sonic flock.
I'm just gonna see whether I can make it loud enough to hear the birds. So as part of my PhD research, I worked with those living with dementia. In particular, I worked in the Outer Hebrides. And during one of my projects, which was called Sonic Flock, we crowdsourced over 80 birds from the locals. So they knitted and used little packs of Harris tweed to create sewn birds. And some actually dry felted. That's a little dry felted blue tit there. And what we did with those is hang them in a gallery space and adapted some of them to make sound. So this piece is kind of my prototype of the flock making sound. So if I could make it loud enough when I touch them, you get the birds tweeting, so you get specific bird sound. What actually happened post this is more of the exhibition piece, but what actually happened after that is the birds left over were taken around care homes in the Outer Hebrides and gifted to those in care homes. And it was really around how you could create conversation and social objects through textiles, a lot of the textiles being reclaimed, which is why they're in this exhibition, and kind of what started me on the journey of what's brought us to Metamorphosis, I suppose. It's had a bit of a baby with my material library. It's a new version. It's got some PVC pipes and things, so it has had an update. But yeah, so that was part of my research and kind of brought me to today, I suppose.
Yeah. So I think it's probably advisable if I quickly nip back to our presentation and make sure that there's nothing important that we've lost so far. Oh, just realized I might not be sharing. So I need to go back to Zoom and share screen. And that one, share, play, we'll get there. So yes, as you'll have seen, we've got a significant number of projects that have been involved. In the very beginning, we had close to a dozen of these pieces. These were students learning to kind of tailor, but then using their toiles through a process called non-traditional seam to kind of cut those up and consider them. So the jacket on the right here was the traditional tailoring. The one on the left actually told stories of the landscape and the kind of walls, I think largely from the Northumbria area. This was kind of linked to, the student was kind of talking about that. What's wonderful is we ended up getting student work into the Times newspaper as a photograph. We've been on the front cover of the Herald, along with a rather great inside story, which was fabulous. My mum was concerned that it was on page 3, but other than that, it was great. And we've managed to kind of take the project out elsewhere. As I said, we've been doing work across all sorts of groups, and our colleague Angela had been doing stuff on mapping pathways and sensory experiences through Gala. So in earlier iterations, we had a collection of kind of, how would we best describe them, experimental textiles that discussed and showed pathways and thinking through. Our work is not just based here, it's international as well. So Britta was sharing, Kalkreuter was sharing her experiences of working with groups, and I've completely forgotten where this was. Sorry, was it in India? Yeah, I want to say Malaysia, actually. I might. Was it? Okay, right. Okay. Well, it was in it, but it was working with local community craft groups and kind of realizing that tradition and craft have a lot to offer as we move forward to a better future. This was a series of textiles and objects designed by people with dementia that I used to go on walks and journeys with. And I think the best thing that to come out of that, other than the fact that they sold their products in shops in Glasgow and Edinburgh, was that they sort of expressed this idea of, you made us think more than we're usually asked to, which I think is so significant. We've just seen Sonic Flock. We've just seen sustainable K-brick, a bit of the creative mending, Chinray's work, the material library, and we've not really talked about this yet, but it has been a massive inspiration. We had a great day just taking stuff apart, and it was amazing how much fun that was, how enjoyable it was just to deconstruct stuff. But ultimately, this is one of the things we're going to have to lead towards as we go forward. You know, the materials are already here. How do we make better use of them? How do we extract them? How do we kind of think about them in new ways? As we've said already, the material library allowed us to look at sea waste and fishing and ghost nets. And then we've gone through things like the graphic waste, sustainable future fashion, where this was looking at the future of printed textiles and materials, and actually comes from the fact we had some of our colleagues looking at how to recycle PET and bottle tops and things to create new filaments for 3D printing. That is not a uniquely new thing, but it's something that we can actually build into locales. We can make that part of a local production approach. And again, as we were saying, we've had speculations, ideas, transformative positions coming out of what we've been doing. And one of those is that we're building a makers lab or a Mac lab at Heriot-Watt. And our intention is to open that up to the local public to engage with and use as we move forward. So, as I said, 3D printing materials. We've talked about use less. We've talked about knitting waste. We've been there, just quickly moving through stuff. The work with Cassandra. Yeah, I think we're now getting to the point where we've covered quite a lot of what's been going on. So hopefully that's given you a good insight of where we've been, what we've been doing, how 10 weeks can take a lot of headspace and has stimulated a lot of change and development, but also allowed us to be highly creative in what we do. I'm going to stop sharing again, if I can remember how to escape that. That's how. So I guess we're back on camera. Please join me.
I just don't like looking at myself on a camera. I think that's part of
So thank you very much for joining us. It's nice to have you here. We'd like to kind of open things up if anyone's got any questions or comments or would like to get involved a bit more.
Thank you so much for showing us around as well, and for everyone that came in person and online. This is our only hybrid event, both going on at the same time, so I'm glad it's worked out well. But yeah, if anyone does have any questions or even comments or feedback, I have one or two, but I'm happy to wait till the end as well. But yeah, can either pop in the chat or just speak out loud. So
Just to clarify as well, it was Sri Lanka, not India.
That was it.
Northern Territory. So if she watches this, want to know that we've corrected that.
Yes. So we've got that right now, hopefully.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question? Is that all right?
go for it.
Sorry, thanks so much, Mary, for hosting as well, and Euan and Lucy for presenting the work. It's really inspiring. You think of the kind of the future you could build solely from that room with the bricks at the end as well. Just the possibilities are sort of endless. Just for context, I am a textile artist and I've just started working for GSA, but up in Forres, looking at how they can better help and support textile community up there. So all the work that you're doing is incredibly inspiring, and I'd love to talk more at some point. But just a question about when you work with students, just how you advise them to approach these waste streams. It's not often that they're very visible. And I wonder how you kind of advise and coach folk to find them, because sometimes I think it's difficult when you're not in an institution to tap into streams like that, and there's not many stores where you can go and buy from waste. So just wondering if you have any comments on that.
I initially was in exactly the same place as you're talking about when I first got involved with this. And in fact, I would say the best way to describe me is a loiterer, a loiterer with hope. So I'd first come into the school to kind of do, to develop new design opportunities. And I very quickly realised there was a lot of interesting things going on, and got taken on tours and got shown a few things, and suddenly being a bit cheeky and asking for materials and kind of asking for stuff to experiment with became part of what was going on. But surprisingly, there are a lot of wonderful local places down here that made great connections to the local mills, and kind of there's even the charity shops do stuff. So like Schofield's, they bag up waste materials and give them to the charity shops to sell on and kind of support craft making. But that is very much about, quite often hidden behind closed doors. You don't always see what's coming out of that. And what we've been trying to do is say, let's get that stuff up front and share it. So what I would say is dig deeply to find out what is going on. There might be more than you realize. The other thing is there's what's the store?
Scrap store.
Scrap store. Yeah.
So yeah, I've got quite a bit of experience in this one. I basically, all of my MAs use waste. I try to make sure they don't buy anything. One, because they've come from mostly international spaces, and they've not brought a lot with them. Sometimes they send back to get things from where they're from, which drives me crazy. So the material library was a bit of an answer to that for me. So creating that resource for them, which I'm still hoping we can get a kind of home for within the university, and build on that with the local charity shops, with the local resources that are here. We have that scrap store in Selkirk, but it's a bus or a car away. So some of our students are kind of reluctant at first to go there, but as soon as they find the treasure trove, they visit a lot. So yeah, I think it's something that all universities need to address if they've not already started to address. I know ECA, for example, have a resource that I'm talking about, like what I'm talking about, and that's something that we want to build on here.
There's also been wonderful local kind of systems. I don't know how recently they've opened up. There's certainly nothing to do with us, unfortunately. It would be great legacy, but things like repair shops and all sorts of kind of tinker spaces, and it's amazing how those then become embedded in finding, sharing, and kind of being part of resource support. But yeah. But
yeah, it's quite difficult to find your way into this.
So we're getting a student point of view here.
Yeah.
Robin's in second year now. Textile design, same for textiles. Yeah, and you find it quite tricky to kind of
quite hard.
tap in.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it does come down. It comes down to a lot of research, but I'm really keen to make this as accessible as we can for our students. And I think this was really the start. Well, the material library, I think, was the start. And then this came, and now we've got this platform to kind of talk about it wider and hopefully start to help our students work that way.
And what's your experience up in Forest so far?
So I'm currently, because I'm only visiting staff at the moment, and the project that I'm involved in is kind of covering the length and breadth of Scotland. So I'm actually in Glasgow at the moment, which is where I'm from. But through that, I'm kind of interviewing makers and going up and down. But in terms of the question about waste, the one thing that I've come across, just in case it's of interest to anyone in the room, is Nomad Supply Textiles in Glasgow, and that's actually a shop where you can go in and be amongst it all. And going in there, they're very open to conversation as well, and I know they've collaborated with GSA with the waste there.
Right,
and
I think they do a lot of end of stock, so they'll have limited amounts of a textile, and once it's gone, it's gone. But it's great in that sense because it allows you to be quite expressive. Yeah.
And my other, I was interested in this specifically because, like Lucy was talking about, in my MFA, I worked solely from waste, but I was in the States, and I was a volunteer for a pre-consumer textile waste company over there. And that was an amazing experience because through volunteering, you were given insight into fibre knowledge in terms of what you were recycling. And then because you put time in, you're also given, fabric to work with, and then you could also purchase fabric. But it was a really interesting model, and that's called Fab Scrap. That shop, and that's in Brooklyn. But it's interesting to see what kind of models of that exist here, and I suppose Nomad's the kind of closest thing in Glasgow I could find. But it's really insightful talking to you, and just like a very inspiring exhibition. Wish I could see it in person, but hopefully next time get down. And thank you, Mary.
The best thing I would say about doing this has been the connections that have been made, but also the unexpected things that have happened. So we've already had someone approach us about whether or not we could do it elsewhere. And at the moment, Lucy and I would probably crawl under the table and rock back and forward a little bit before we even think about it. But I meant that in a kind of frenzied, crazed position more than anything, because 10 weeks of changing stuff and doing stuff differently is bonkers.
I did ask at the beginning if it was a good idea. And is it a good idea? I mean, I think it has been for the public, and for engagement,
the students,
and for students for the change.
The fact we've been able to tie projects to it, students see stuff, they develop stuff, it goes into exhibition, and it's exhibited alongside professional industry stuff as well.
And having Angela, for example, kind of live knitting in the space was really inspiring. So it has been worth it, but a lot of effort. But we're definitely keen to kind of see where it takes us next, and make some connections, and maybe make some kind of entrepreneurial decisions around how we can help the waste streams be more visible.
And that's something that Use Less over in Hanover are already kind of saying is be great to have this network of people doing things like the material library. So rather than kind of squirreling away in a corner and not sharing, saying, yep, these are the bonkers things that we've been working with, what have you been getting your hands on, and kind of allowing for this kind of network or library of stuff to be more than just one location but connected. So you could build one up in Forest.
There's all these vacant shops as well, like you're saying, in all small towns, and you just think of the potential of that as being, space to house thing.
In Selkirk, we have a repair shop as well over there, and that's an amazing little place. In everything, really. And they'll either repair it or find someone to repair it or advise. And locally we've just had the tech one has just opened up for electronics. So it's definitely something that's happening. It's just, and it has happened before. Tapping into all of that.
And that's the thing, a lot of the techniques and skills are, you know, age old in the way, like the mending or, you know, looking back at archives to integrate that back in. I just think it's a really special time, and I'm glad that events like this are happening, because it's really meaningful moving forward.
Thank you very much. Mary, you said you had a couple of questions, or you want to jump in?
Sure. I just wanted to ask. Also, it's just nice to see another connection being made. So thanks for joining, Erin, and sharing your perspective.
And on that note, feel free to contact us. If you, Mary, you
I can link you up over email after if you want. Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah.
I've got both your addresses, so that's fine. Yeah, no worries. Also, someone else who works at Heriot-Watt on Edinburgh campus, they messaged me, so I'll maybe connect you to them as well. Because they said they'd like to show the recording to colleagues and stuff. So yeah. But yeah, I just wanted to ask what I know it has been really hectic, but and you've kind of mentioned it, but I just wondered what like both of your favorite parts of it have been, either, you know, specific exhibits or just general things you've learned from doing this process, and also what is next for it. I know you're maybe not, there's been a few ideas mentioned, but yeah, just what's next, or how people can stay in touch and get involved as well.
Yeah, well, we have set up a website, which is redesigningwaste.com. That, as is always the case with every website, it's constantly under construction, but there are kind of overviews of the projects on there. And I would say, please, by all means, have a look. If there's stuff you want to know more about, get in touch, and we'll certainly act as connections that way. Do you know what? Every time I've come in, I've found something new that I like. And it's one of the weirdest things, seeing it's our show. Every so often I'll just go, yeah, I really like that. Or you see something, you think, oh, that's different. And that's been a great joy, because what that shows is the stuff that we've shared has had value that I hope has reached beyond just me. It's really nice to see those things. And it's great. What was brilliant the first week, where we had the jackets that I showed in the first slide of the actual show, the 10, 12 pieces there, and the students, two of the students were interviewed for radio about what they had. They were photographed with the work, and they had a real sense of, wait a minute, this isn't in Heriot-Watt in the school, it's at a proper exhibition space in a proper landmark destination, and that was great to actually share and have happen. I think that was really positive.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to sleeping afterwards, but yeah, I think it's just been really interesting seeing how maybe Euan's mind's worked from material library to all of this coming together. So it's been a really exciting kind of collaboration to work on. And yeah, loads of connections, loads of people have reached out. And I think for me, seeing the students excited about their work being displayed, but also to visit the space in the first place, and as Euan said, kind of coming out of the university a little bit and reconnecting with the town. I think post-COVID that was definitely necessary and needed to reconnect. Yeah, there's been lots of good bits. I just can't quite articulate them at this point on a Friday.
The unfortunate thing is, yesterday we had a wonderful pair of guest speakers, and I wish we'd recorded and shared that, because Bruce McLaren from McLaren Plastics, I introduced him as the Demon Plastics man, but he was so articulate and telling us about the massive changes that they're exploring, the experimentation they're doing all the time to minimize the impact of already existing plastics, and how to keep them in the stream to minimize the requirement to go and get virgin material, but also the additives they're putting in, the way they're rethinking structures, even the simplest thing of trying to re-educate companies such as IBM in terms of what a recycled product looks like. He told a great story about a product that they made for IBM, and IBM said, it looks too good. It's got to look a bit more recycled. So they had to add something into the mix to make it look as though it had been recycled, because it looked like a brand new part out of brand new material. So it's that thing of changing people's mindsets that recycled, reused, rethought materials can be just as good as what we've already got. We just need to have the right mindset.
It's interesting to work with that perception though of, you know, so basically they went back and made it look more recycled. So it had kind of swirly lines through it.
Yeah.
Which I think is a really, yeah, so that, you know, we talk about this a lot in our kind of research group, but it comes back to consumer behavior, it comes back to how we can change behavior, but also maybe how we need to work with behavior and perception, and how we can maybe, you know, work through certain problems in that way. So it's so much bigger than, you know, it's all of this stuff together collectively. It's not just one thing that's kind of making that change.
Yeah. It's it is the one good thing about looking about here and just seeing stuff and going, yeah, that stuff, though its origins is somewhere else, still looks as good as anything you'll find elsewhere. I don't know if I've gone off topic now, but there we go.
That's all. Thank you so much. And yeah, it's nice just to hear about like the different connections that have been made, but also there are just all the different connections between all the different parts, like of fashion that we need to work in, and mindsets and consumers, but also, you know, waste at the end of life as well as before. So I think for the spring gathering, you know, our three main themes are connect, learn and grow. And I feel like that is definitely, it could apply to Metamorphosis and the outcomes and what you've been doing as well. So thank you so much for sharing an insight into that and giving us a virtual tour for those who couldn't make it down as well. I'm sure it'll I'm glad we did record this one as well, so we can share that after on our website too. But we'll probably close there, but obviously if anyone wants to, if you want to stay and chat a little bit, I'm happy to stay on 5-10 minutes, but I'll stop the recording for now. But is there anything else you want to say just before I finish the recording? Or
No, just thank you very much for having us, and I hope the rest of the gathering goes well.
thank you so much.
The only thing left to say is that we actually closed the exhibition. So the last time to see it is tomorrow, Saturday, the 20th of May, March.
25th.
25th. So that it will close, but we do plan to hopefully have some future similar things going on. But I'd also like to invite anyone who does watch this to our degree show, which will happen in June. So keep an eye out. And it is open to the public. Please come and have a look at our students' work on campus, see our beautiful school, and even pop along to the Great Tapestry and enjoy the gallery here as well, whatever's happening here at the time.
And the other thing is, if you pop along to the degree show, you might well come across the COP26 installation, which we are borrowing for a little longer time.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Perfect. We'll be sure to promote the degree show as well, hopefully make it down too. So thank you for that.
Thank you very much.
Bye.